Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. My name is Xavier Carter, and I am 34 years old. 3 weeks. That is how long I have been getting the cold shoulder from my own wife, Lauren. 3 weeks of watching her scroll through her phone while I tried to initiate any kind of physical connection. 3 weeks of being treated like a roommate who occasionally helped with the bills instead of a husband she once swore she could not live without. It started subtle. A turned cheek when I leaned in for a kiss. Rolling away when I reached for her in bed. I am tired became her favorite phrase, delivered with the enthusiasm of someone reading a grocery list. But it was not just the physical rejection that worked its way under my skin. It was the complete emotional shutdown that came with it. The light in her eyes when she looked at me had dimmed, and I did not know when it had happened or how. I tried everything. I brought her coffee in the morning. I planned a dinner at the Italian place in Georgetown that she used to love. I even suggested we take a weekend trip to Charleston or San Diego. Each attempt was met with the same lukewarm response. That is nice. Or maybe later. Or my personal favorite. We will see. No touch. No warmth. No curiosity. Just a tired refusal wrapped in politeness. The worst part was that she would not even look at me during these deflections. She kept her eyes glued to whatever was on her screen, like I was an interruption to her evening entertainment rather than a man she married. I began wondering if I had done something wrong. Maybe I had said something that offended her, or maybe I had missed something important. But every time I asked, she waved me off with nothing is wrong. I'm just not in the mood. For 3 weeks straight, it was the same script, the same distance. The same hollowed-out silence in the place where we once meant everything to each other. Last Tuesday, I decided to address it head-on. We were sitting on the couch after dinner, and she was in her usual spot with her phone while a Netflix show played to no one in particular. I turned off the television and sat facing her. I said that we needed to talk about what had been happening between us. She did not even look up. She said, "What do you mean?" I told her she knew exactly what I meant. We had not been intimate in weeks. She barely acknowledged me when I tried to show her affection. We were living like strangers. Finally, she looked up, but the expression on her face said I was being dramatic. She said people go through phases, and it was normal. I said 3 weeks is not a phase. 3 weeks is a pattern. She set her phone down with an exaggerated sigh. She asked what I wanted her to say, that she should force herself to be in the mood because I wanted attention. I told her I wanted to understand why my wife treated me like I was invisible in my own home. That was when her expression changed. Something cold flickered across her face, and she stood up from the couch as if my words were an accusation she could not bear. She said that I was always so needy, always wanting something from her. She said her ex never made her feel this unappreciated. The words hit me like a physical blow. My ex never made me feel this unappreciated. She had compared our marriage to her previous relationship. She had compared me to the man she dated before me. I sat there for a moment, processing what she had just said. She stood with her arms crossed like she had delivered a profound truth instead of a devastating insult. The woman I had married, the woman I had built a life with, had just told me her ex-boyfriend was better at making her feel appreciated than I was. I said, "So that is what this is about?" She asked what? I asked, "You were comparing me to him." She rolled her eyes. She said she was not comparing anyone. She said some men understand how to make a woman feel valued without being demanding about it. Demanding. That was what she called wanting basic affection from my own wife. I stood up slowly, feeling something inside me shift. It was not anger, not exactly. It was clarity. The kind of clarity that arrives when someone shows you exactly where you stand. I said, "I see." She told me not to be dramatic. She said I was making a bigger deal out of it than it needed to be. But I was not making a big deal. I was finally understanding the real deal. For 3 weeks, I had been wondering what I had done wrong. It turned out my crime was existing in the same space as her memories of someone else. My crime was not measuring up to an idealized version of a relationship she had decided was better than ours. I walked upstairs without another word. Behind me, she called out and asked where I was going. She said we were not done talking about this. But we were done. We had been done the moment she decided our marriage was worth less than nostalgia for someone who was not in her life anymore. I sat on the edge of our bed staring at the wall, and the sentence kept playing like a scratched record. My ex never made me feel this unappreciated. She had not just rejected me. She had ranked me, and I had lost to a ghost. That night, she came to bed as if nothing had happened. She brushed her teeth, completed her skincare routine, climbed under the covers, and picked up her phone. Something had changed for me. I was done begging for scraps of attention from someone who clearly did not think I deserved them. I was done competing with a memory. As I lay in the dark, listening to the soft sound of her scrolling, I made a decision. I would not plead my case anymore. I would not try to convince her of my worth. I would not ask for what should have been freely given. The next morning, I woke up with a strange sense of calm. For the first time in weeks, I was not planning ways to reconnect with her. I was thinking about logistics. She was already downstairs making coffee when I came down. Usually, I would try to steal a kiss or ask about her day. Not today. I poured my own coffee, grabbed a banana, and headed for the door. She said I was leaving early, without looking up from the counter. I said yes. I did not elaborate. I let her wonder. At work in Arlington, I did something I had never done before. I called my bank and opened a separate checking account in my name. Nothing dramatic. I moved a portion of my paycheck. Then I made a list of everything that was mine, everything that was ours, and everything that was hers. Years of generosity had left most major assets in my name anyway. When I got home, she was on the couch in her usual spot, phone in hand, a reality show playing softly. She asked how my day had been, still not looking up. I said it was fine. I sat in the chair across from her instead of next to her. She asked, "That is it?" Usually, I told her about work or something that happened. I said, "Do I?" I said I had not noticed she was listening. Her eyebrows lifted. She asked what that was supposed to mean. I said, "Nothing. I was just making an observation." For the next few days, I kept this up, polite but distant. I stopped initiating conversations about our relationship. I stopped asking about her day with real interest. When she made passive-aggressive comments about my behavior, I responded with the kind of diplomatic politeness one might use with a coworker. By Thursday, it was clearly getting to her. She said I was being strange. I said, "Strange how?" She said she did not know, just different. I looked up from my plate. I told her I was giving her what she had asked for, space to feel undemanding. She said that was not what she had said. I said she had called me needy, so I was being less needy. Problem solved. She set her fork down. She said I was being passive-aggressive. I said I was being responsive. There was a difference. She asked what that even meant. I leaned back in my chair. I said it meant I was no longer going to pursue someone who clearly did not want to be pursued. She had made it clear that my attention felt like pressure to her. I said she could consider the pressure officially lifted. She said I was acting like a child. I said I was acting like an adult who listened to his wife and adjusted his behavior accordingly. She stared at me for a long moment. She said she did not say she did not want my attention. She said I was being needy about it. I said, "And apparently your ex figured out how to give you attention without being needy." Her face flushed. She asked if I was ever going to let that go. I asked, "Let it go?" The fact that she compared our marriage to her previous relationship and found it lacking. I told her it had been very educational. She said she had been frustrated, and that people say things when they are frustrated. I said, "Yes, they say what they are really thinking." That weekend, while she was out with friends, I quietly gathered my important documents. Birth certificate, passport, financial records, insurance papers. I organized them and put the folder in my car. Then I made a mental inventory of what I had brought into the marriage and what we had acquired together. Sunday evening, she tried a different approach. She settled next to me on the couch for the first time in days. She said she had been thinking about what we talked about. She said maybe we should try to work on it together. Counseling, perhaps. I asked counseling for what? She said for our communication issues. I almost laughed. I told her our communication seemed fairly clear to me. She had told me exactly how she felt about our relationship. I had heard her clearly. She said I was twisting her words. I asked if I was. I said what I heard was that her ex-boyfriend was better at making her feel appreciated than her husband is. I asked if I had misunderstood something. She said that was not how she meant it. I asked how she meant it. She said she meant that maybe I could learn from how other men approach relationships. I said other men like her ex-men who understand that appreciation is not just about physical attention. She said, "That is not what I am saying." I asked what she was saying. She fumbled for words. She said maybe we both needed to try harder. I said she was absolutely right. I stood and headed for the stairs. She asked where I was going. I said to try harder, just not in the way she expected. That night, I lay in bed planning. She thought this was a sulk. She thought I would eventually apologize for being distant and things would go back to normal. She thought she could make a comparison like that and smooth it over with vague language about working on us. She was wrong. Monday morning, I took a personal day from work. I told my manager I had family matters to attend to. While she was at work, I went to see a lawyer in downtown Washington, D.C., not to file papers yet, but to understand my options. I wanted to know what I would be walking into if things went the way I suspected. The lawyer's name was Harold Benton, an even-tempered man in a gray suit. He asked how long I had been married. I said 6 years. He asked if we had children. I said no. He asked about joint property. I said the house was in both our names. Most of the other major assets were in mine. He nodded and said that simplified things. He asked if I was thinking about separation or divorce. I said I was thinking about what my life looks like without someone who does not appreciate it. He said fair enough and laid out what I needed to know. By the time I left, I had a clear picture of my legal position and a quiet plan forming in my mind. Friday morning came like any other day, except it was not. My alarm went off at 5:30. I had been setting it earlier all week, claiming I wanted to hit the gym in Columbia Heights. Really, I had been using the extra time to finalize my preparations. I moved through the house like I had rehearsed it. 2 duffel bags, essential clothes for 2 weeks, laptop, chargers, toiletries. My folder with documents was already in my car. I grabbed the watch my father gave me and a signed baseball from when I was 12. Everything else could wait. This was not about taking everything I owned. This was about taking everything I needed to start over. The hardest part was being quiet. Every footstep felt amplified. Every zipper sounded like a chainsaw. But Lauren was a heavy sleeper, especially on Fridays, and I knew her patterns after 6 years. Before I left, I wrote a note and left it on the kitchen counter where she would see it when she came down for coffee. I wrote, "You wanted to feel appreciated. Now you can discover what that actually means." It was simple and direct. No drama. No accusations. No emotional manipulation. I drove to my friend Curtis's place in Silver Spring. He had been expecting me since Wednesday, when I finally told him what was happening. Curtis had gone through a divorce 2 years ago, so he understood more than most. He asked how I felt when I showed up with my bags. I said lighter than I had in months. He said good. That was how I should feel. I set up in his guest room and turned off my phone. I wanted her to discover my absence naturally. I wanted her to come downstairs, see the note, and understand that this was a decision. Around noon, I turned my phone back on. 17 missed calls. 12 text messages. The progression was fascinating. The first message, 8:47 in the morning. "Where are you? Your note does not make sense." The next, 9:15 in the morning. "Seriously, where did you go? This is not funny." By 10:30, "Answer your phone now." At 11:15, "If you think this is going to solve anything, you are wrong." The calls increased after that. I let them all go to voicemail. By evening, there were 47 missed calls and 23 messages. The tone had shifted. The afternoon ones were angry. "You cannot just leave without talking about this. This is childish, and you know it." By evening, the tone shifted to bargaining. "I know you are upset, but we can work through this. Please come home so we can talk." The late-night messages sounded like fear. "I am scared. Where are you staying? Please let me know you are all right." I noticed something she did not say in any of those messages. She never said she was wrong about the comparison. She never acknowledged that what she said was hurtful. She never apologized. Curtis noticed me checking my phone Saturday morning. He asked if she was panicking. I said she was progressing through stages. Right now we were between anger and bargaining. He asked if I was going to respond. I said not yet. I said she needed to understand this was not a negotiation. This was a consequence. Saturday afternoon, she tried a new strategy. She showed up at Curtis's townhome. I watched from the upstairs window as she pounded on the front door. Curtis answered. I heard her voice carry through the stairwell. She said she knew I was there and needed to talk to me. Curtis told her I did not want to talk to her right now. She said he was the reason I was there instead of at home. She stood on the porch for 20 minutes, alternating between knocking, calling my phone, and pleading through the door. Finally, she left, but not before shouting that I could not hide forever. Sunday was quieter. A few calls, fewer messages. She was either regrouping or accepting that I was not coming back because she demanded it. Monday morning, she tried going to my workplace in Arlington. I had anticipated it and spoken to security ahead of time. The head of security, Mr. Howard, called me around 10. He said my wife had been there asking for me, that they told her I was not available and asked her to leave. He said she did not take it well. He said she caused enough of a scene that they had to escort her out of the building. Nothing dramatic, but she was upset. The humiliation of being removed from my office building in front of my colleagues would hit her hard. She cared about appearances and about what people thought of our marriage. That evening, the messages changed again. She said she could not believe I had her escorted out of my work like she was some kind of problem. She asked what she was supposed to tell people. She said my behavior was embarrassing. Even now, she made it about what I did wrong rather than what had led us here. Tuesday night, she tried calling from her sister's number, probably thinking I would pick up if I did not recognize the caller. I let it go to voicemail. The message said she had talked to her sister, Patrice, who thought I was overreacting. She said we all say things we do not mean when we are frustrated. She said she had already said she was sorry. Except she had not said she was sorry. She had explained, justified, minimized, and blamed. But she had not apologized. Wednesday morning, I received a different kind of text. She said she went to see a counselor. She said she needed to take responsibility for her part in this, and that she was trying to understand what she did wrong. She said she could not fix it if I would not talk to her. For the first time since I left, she acknowledged she might have done something wrong. Not an apology, not yet, but a step. But acknowledgement was not enough. Understanding that you hurt someone does not undo the hurt, and it does not change the fundamental issue. She had compared our marriage to her past relationship and found it lacking. Even if she apologized now, even if she promised never to make that comparison again, the damage was done. By Thursday, the messages became desperate. It had been a week, she wrote. She said I made my point. She pleaded for me to come home, said she could not eat or sleep or focus. She said she would do whatever I wanted. That was the problem. I did not want her to say or do anything because I demanded it. I wanted her to value what we had without needing to be instructed. I wanted her to appreciate our marriage without comparing it to something else. She had proven she could not do that. Friday morning, exactly 1 week after I left, my phone lit up with a call from Patrice. I almost did not answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Patrice's first words were that Lauren was losing her mind. She said there were no pleasantries needed. She said Lauren had not slept in days, had called in sick, and sat in the house crying and staring at the note I left. I said good morning to her, and Patrice told me not to be sarcastic. She asked if I had any idea what I had done to Lauren. I told her I had given Lauren exactly what she said she wanted, space to feel undemanding. Patrice said that was not what Lauren wanted and I knew it. I said actually that was exactly what Lauren had said. She said I was too needy. She said her ex never made her feel unappreciated. So I had removed myself in the equation. Patrice said Lauren did not mean it like that. I asked how she meant it. Patrice went quiet. Then she said Lauren was just frustrated. She said people say things when they are frustrated. I said they tell the truth. The conversation went on for 10 minutes with Patrice trying different angles. I was being too harsh. Marriage was about forgiveness. Everyone made mistakes. But the lesson Lauren needed was not about watching her words when she was frustrated. The lesson was about appreciating what you have before you lose it. After I hung up, I realized something inside me had shifted. The anger was gone. The hurt had faded. What remained was clarity. A clear understanding of where I stood in her priorities and a clear resolve about what I was going to do about it. Saturday, she tried something new. Instead of calling or texting, she showed up at every place she thought I might be. The gym, the sports bar in Silver Spring where I watched games, the bookstore in DuPont Circle where I once bought her a birthday gift. Curtis's neighbor called him around 2 in the afternoon. There was a woman sitting in a car outside his house. She had been there for hours. I looked out the window and saw her car across the street. She sat inside, waiting, probably hoping I would step outside so she could catch me. Curtis asked how long I thought she would stay. I said until she realized I was not coming out. She stayed until almost midnight. She sat in her car, occasionally getting out to walk around the block, then getting back in to wait. Her dedication was impressive, but it confirmed what I suspected. She thought this was about getting me in a room to explain her way out of what she had said. Sunday morning, She texted that she saw my car at Curtis's place. She said she knew I was there. She said she would wait all day if she had to. I texted one word back. I wrote, "Do not." She called within seconds. She said thank God I answered, and that we needed to talk. I said no, we did not. She said yes, we did. She said I could not throw away 6 years over one argument. I said it was not an argument. Arguments are between equals. This had been her telling me exactly how she felt about our relationship. She said she was wrong. She said she knew she was wrong. I asked, wrong about what? She said she was wrong about comparing me to him. I asked, so you did not mean it? She paused. She said she meant it at the time, but she was angry. I said that was all I needed to know. She meant at the time. She said people say things they do not mean when they are upset. I said no. They say things they usually keep to themselves. I said she had been thinking about her ex and how he made her feel compared to me. I said she had been keeping score and I had been losing. She said that was not true. I asked why she said it then. Another pause. Longer. She said she did not know. I said she did know. She simply did not want to admit it. She said fine. She said maybe she had thought about it sometimes, but that did not mean she did not love me. There it was. The truth. She had been comparing us, and I had been coming up short. I thanked her for being honest. She asked if I would come home now. I said no. She asked why not. She said she told me the truth. I said the truth was exactly why I was not coming home. I said she loved me, but she did not appreciate me. She loved me, but she thought someone else was better at making her feel valued. She said she never said that. I told her she did not have to. It was implied. She started crying. I could hear it in her breath. She said she could not lose me. She said she could not lose us. I said she already had. The moment she decided our marriage was worth less than her memories of someone else. She said she chose me. She said she married me. I said she had settled for me after realizing that the person she used to measure me against was no longer in the picture. She said that was not how it was. I asked how it was, and she said nothing. I ended the call. Within an hour, I had 14 missed calls and a string of text messages that moved from pleading to anger to bargaining and back to pleading again. She said she could change. She said she would never mention him again. She said she would go to counseling. She said she would do whatever I wanted. She said please do not give up on us. She said she was sorry. The apology I had waited for finally came, buried inside desperation. But sorry could not erase the revelation that my spouse had been mentally comparing me to her ex for years. That evening, Curtis found me sitting on his back porch with a beer, staring at nothing. He asked if it was a rough day. I said she finally admitted she compared me to her ex sometimes. He said that must hurt. I said it did, but at least I knew I had not imagined her distance, the way my affection annoyed her, the way she measured me against an idealized memory. He asked what I would do next. I said I would stop letting her waste both our time pretending our marriage was something it was not. Monday morning, I called the lawyer again and scheduled an appointment for that afternoon. It was time to stop reacting and start acting. It was time to make this official. Tuesday morning, Patrice called me, screaming that Lauren had not eaten in 3 days and that she needed me to come home. I said no. Patrice said Lauren was falling apart, that she had never seen her like this. I said that is what happens when you realize what you have lost. Patrice asked how I could be so heartless. She said Lauren made one mistake. I said Lauren had been comparing me to her ex for years. It was not a slip of the tongue. It was the truth surfacing. Patrice said Lauren realized she was wrong. I asked, does she? Because when I asked her, she admitted she thinks about the comparison sometimes. That is not regret. That is getting caught. Patrice's voice cracked. She said marriage is about forgiveness. I said this was not about forgiveness. You cannot forgive someone for how they truly feel. Wednesday evening, both Patrice and Lauren's mother, Evelyn, showed up at Curtis's door. Evelyn said we needed to talk. I said no, we did not. Evelyn said Lauren was destroying herself over this. I said she destroyed our marriage the moment she compared it to her previous one. I said I was acknowledging what had already happened. Patrice stepped forward. She said Lauren had been crying for 2 weeks and could not function. I said perhaps she should have thought about that before telling me her ex never made her feel unappreciated. Evelyn said I took vows. I said Lauren did too. I asked how anyone cherishes someone while wishing there was someone else. Evelyn said Lauren chose me. I said she settled for me after her first choice did not work out. I said I'd been grateful to be chosen for 6 years, but I was finished accepting scraps. Evelyn asked what it would take to fix this. I said she would have to become a completely different person. Someone who appreciates what she has instead of longing for what she does not. Someone who does not keep mental scorecards between her current marriage and her past. Evelyn said people could change. I asked if Lauren could change the fact that she had been thinking about her ex and how he made her feel compared to me. I asked if she could change that when frustrated her instinct was to compare our marriage and find it lacking. I asked if she could change that I had been losing a competition I did not know I was in. Neither of them answered. I said that was what I thought. Patrice made one final plea. She said Lauren would keep falling apart until I came back. I said then she would keep falling apart. I said I was not coming back to be someone's second choice. Thursday morning, I signed the divorce papers. Friday afternoon, 2 weeks after I had walked out, I called Lauren. She answered before the first ring finished. She said thank God, and she pleaded for me to come home. She said she was sorry, that she had been an idiot, that she knew what she said was terrible, but she loved me and chose me and wanted to fix it. I let her speak until she ran out of words. I asked if she was done. She said please come home, and we could work through it together. I said there was nothing to work through. I said she taught me something important about how she really saw our marriage. She asked what lesson I had learned. I said I learned that I was never enough compared to her ex. I said that when she married me, she was settling for what was available after her first choice did not work out. I said that for 6 years, I had been competing with a memory and losing. She said that was not true. I said it was true, and I thanked her for her honesty because it saved me from wasting more years trying to be someone I was not. She said she was wrong, that she was angry and stupid, and said something horrible she did not mean. I said she meant every word. People do not accidentally compare their spouse to someone else and find them lacking. That comes from years of thinking. She said she could change and that we could go to counseling. I said she could not change how she fundamentally felt about me. She could learn to hide it better, but she could not change it. I said I refused to spend my life as someone's consolation prize. Her voice broke. She said please do not do this, that she needed me. I said no. What she needed to learn was that she could not tell her husband he did not measure up to her ex and expect him to stay for more comparisons. She said she loved me. I said she loved having a husband. She loved the security, the companionship. But she did not love me enough to appreciate me without comparing me to someone else. She said that was not fair. I said what was not fair was marrying someone while remaining emotionally invested in the past. What was not fair was making me compete with a ghost for 6 years without telling me there was a competition. She said she would never mention him again. She said she would never think about him again. I said it was too late. She had already shown me where I stood. She had revealed that when our marriage became difficult, her first instinct was to compare it to another relationship and find it lacking. She asked if that was it, if I was giving up on us. I said I was not giving up. I was accepting reality. I said I deserved someone who chose me first, not someone who settled. She said she did choose me. I said she chose what was available. There was a difference. She asked what she could do. She said if I told her what to do, she would do it. I said there was nothing she could do. I said she could not undo 6 years of mental comparisons. She could not change that I knew exactly how she saw our marriage. She could not make me forget that when she was frustrated, she reminded me that another man did it better. She pleaded. I told her I had already filed for divorce. I told her she would be served papers next week. I said this conversation was my courtesy call to tell her it was over. She said I could not throw away everything we built. I said I was not throwing anything away. I said I was acknowledging that what we built was never what I thought it was. I said I thought we built a marriage between two people who chose each other. It turned out we built a marriage between someone who chose and someone who settled. She said she never settled. I said yes, she did. I said now she would experience what it is like to lose what she settled for. She said she would not sign the papers. I said she did not have to. After the waiting period, it would go through. I recommended she sign them anyway for both our sakes. She said this was not over. I said it was. I said she wanted to feel appreciated, and now she could spend the rest of her life appreciating what she had after it was gone. I hung up and blocked her number. 3 months later, the divorce was final. Through mutual friends, I heard she moved back in with her parents in Baltimore for a while. I heard she tried to date, but could not connect with anyone. I heard she told people she made the biggest mistake of her life. Mistakes can be forgiven. What she did was not a mistake. It was a revelation. I was grateful she had finally been honest about it. During those months, I discovered how quiet a morning can be when you are not bracing for disappointment. I discovered that making breakfast alone can feel like a promise rather than a punishment. Curtis invited me to a pickup basketball run on weekends. I joined a weekly trivia night at a bar in Bethesda. I drove down to Richmond to hike a trail I always talked about but never had. I moved into a small apartment with large windows and no ghosts. On my first night there, I slept with the blinds open and woke to sunlight on the floor. I did not miss the sound of her scrolling. I did not miss trying to convince someone to see me. I met people who asked questions and waited for answers. I laughed with coworkers over lunch, and when they asked how I was doing, I said I was all right and meant it. I found a therapist in D.C. who did not ask me to forgive what I did not need to forgive. She asked me to name what I valued and to refuse to negotiate against it. I discovered that appreciation is not a performance you force out of a partner by asking nicely enough or often enough. It is a choice that shows up unprompted. One evening, Curtis and I sat on his porch as the light drained from the sky. He asked if I thought I would ever call Lauren again. I said no. I said there was nothing left to say. He nodded. He said sometimes the clearest thing in the world is a closed door. I said sometimes the clearest thing in the world is the note you leave on the counter, a sentence that means more than the paper it is written on. He asked if I still had a copy of that note. I said it was in my glove compartment, folded under my registration. He asked why. I said because words matter. I said because I needed to remember the day I stopped asking for what should have been freely given. The next weekend, I drove to the Italian place in Georgetown by myself and ordered takeout. The hostess asked if I wanted to wait at the bar. I said I would rather stand outside and watch the river. I leaned on the railing and breathed. The streets hummed with people who had no idea who I was and no reason to pretend otherwise. When my order was ready, I thanked the staff and drove home. I ate at my kitchen counter and read a book. No phone face down as a statement. No waiting for footsteps on the stairs. I did not need to win a comparison against a ghost anymore. I did not need to win anything. On a Tuesday in late summer, I took a day off and drove to the shore in Delaware. I walked until the pier was a thin line and the gulls were louder than my thoughts. I remembered the first month I knew Lauren, the way her laughter filled the air. I remembered the middle years, when the laughter became a currency we spent carefully. I remembered the end, when silence did not mean peace. I stood in the wind and let that life settle behind me. It did not evaporate. It did not need to. It simply took its place on a shelf labeled what I know now. The next day, I called my mother, who had lived long enough to know the difference between grief and wisdom. She asked if I was taking care of myself. I said I was. She said that sometimes love is showing up, and sometimes love is stepping away, so you can keep your own heart whole. I said I understood. She said she was proud of me. When I hung up, I sent Curtis a message and asked if he wanted to meet at the bookstore in DuPont Circle later. He said yes. We walked the aisles, and I told him I wanted a book that did not ask me to be anyone else. He handed me a thin novel about a man who walks and keeps walking until he is both lost and found. We paid, and outside I told him I was going to be all right. He said he knew. On the way home, I passed the block where Lauren and I had once looked at apartments. It felt like a photo I did not need to take. When I reached my place, the late sun had turned the windows into copper squares. I carried the book upstairs and leaned it against the lamp. I opened the blinds and stood there for a while, breathing in a room that asked nothing of me. Later, I sat on the floor with my back against the couch and read until the words thinned into sleep. I woke before sunrise, the city quiet and impossible. I made coffee and stood in the kitchen barefoot, the tile cold and honest. I took out a pen and a clean sheet of paper, not to write a note to someone else, but to write a promise to myself. I wrote that I will not chase anyone's attention to feel worthy. I wrote that I will not compete with a memory. I wrote that I will love when love looks like appreciation without instruction. I folded the paper and put it in the drawer next to the watch my father gave me. It was not the end of anything. It was an acknowledgement of everything I had already learned the hard way, and the gentlest kind of beginning. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.